The government has gone too far in trying to push up housing prices. Recently, Shanghai lifted purchase restrictions in an attempt to stimulate price growth, but it hasn't had much effect. Why? Because those who want to buy simply can't afford it. The policies are getting more and more pointless. I can't help but criticize. The policy introduced in Shanghai on the 19th seemed like a game changer at first, but turned out to be a disappointment. Isn't this just a move to encourage people from other regions to buy more property outside the city's inner ring? The real intention isn't clear, and we all need to stay alert. But will this actually drive outsiders to rush and buy property in Shanghai? Can it save the struggling market? Maybe they should try canceling property taxes, eliminating value-added tax, and fully lifting purchase restrictions. That might actually have some effect. The policy mentioned by the blogger refers to the notice issued on September 19th by the Shanghai Municipal Finance Bureau and the Shanghai Taxation Bureau of the State Administration of Taxation. It is titled Notice on Optimizing and Adjusting the Pilot Policy on Personal Housing Property Taxes in the City, which states that eligible non-local resident families will be temporarily exempt from property taxes. The notice outlines the eligible non-local resident families, which include high-level talent and urgently needed professionals in key industries who hold a Shanghai residence permit and work and live in the city according to national and local regulations. Homebuyers who have held a Shanghai residence permit for at least 3 years and work and live in the city. At first glance, this policy seems like a pardon, but doesn't it feel oddly familiar? Yes, that's right. It's related to the Shanghai 6 measures introduced on August 25th, now reappearing under a new guise. On August 25th, 6 departments in Shanghai, including the Shanghai Municipal Housing and Urban Rural Construction Management Committee and the Shanghai Housing Management Bureau, issued the Notice on Optimizing and Adjusting the City's Real Estate Policies. The notice states that non-Shanghai resident families who meet the conditions will be temporarily exempt from property taxes when purchasing their first home. For second homes and beyond, after consolidating the total housing area of the family, a tax-free area of 60 square meters per person will be deducted. This notice, which mainly addresses purchase restrictions, credit, and tax measures, has been referred to as the Shanghai 6 measures. Shanghai Zhongyuan real estate analyst Lu Wenxi explained to the Shanghai Securities Journal. He said that the policy released on September 19th is a supplementary measure to the 825 Shanghai Real Estate New Policy, providing further clarification in the housing tax area. In other words, the September 19th notice further explains the eligible non-Shanghai resident families outlined in the August 25th notice. Analysts suggest that the core of this document is to relax tax incentives, allowing outsiders who previously could not enjoy tax exemptions for second homes to benefit from them, essentially encouraging outsiders to buy property in Shanghai.
It seems that Shanghai's real estate market really depends on outsiders to buy. After the purchase restrictions were lifted in the suburbs, results were actually quite average. Last week, new adjustments were made specifically targeting out-of-town buyers. If everyone's income increases and buying a house becomes easier, many issues, whether related to property taxes or the housing market, would be solved, right?
In reality, people's incomes have not increased, and the real estate market remains sluggish. Even an international metropolis like Shanghai is struggling. In this situation, the authorities have had to make adjustments. The Shanghai 6 measures have been interpreted by the public as the first move this year to optimize and adjust the real estate market policies. In May and September 2024, Shanghai had already introduced the Shanghai 9 measures and the Shanghai 7 measures. Real estate agent blogger Xiao Wei, who has 79,000 followers, believes that the core logic of the Shanghai 6 measures is to encourage wealthy individuals to replace their properties. Since the purchase restrictions in Shanghai haven't been loosened, how many of those with purchasing eligibility will actually go outside the outer ring to buy a home because of this new policy? Only a few individuals with plenty of money, who already own 2 or 3 properties within the inner ring, might buy a villa on the outer ring for leisure or vacation. Who would still believe in the investment value of buying property outside the outer ring? The underlying logic of the new policy is to tap into the potential of the wealthy, but it has no real impact on ordinary people, because what most ordinary people are lacking is not property, but money. She said that the authorities are encouraging the current purchasing power in the housing market to save new homes outside the outer ring. The biggest challenge in the Shanghai real estate market right now especially outside the outer ring, is that while more and more homes are being built, fewer and fewer new buyers are entering the market. Regular first-time home buyers can no longer afford it. And even among the middle class, while some haven't fallen back into poverty, how many still dare to buy a home? The current economic climate is poor, and the middle class is worried about downward mobility, making them hesitant to buy. The only group still able to buy is the small number of wealthy individuals. Official data also supports Xiao Wei's statement. Shanghai Housing Management Bureau reports that within a week of the Shanghai 6 measures being introduced, the market outside the outer ring showed notable improvement. The daily foot traffic for new homes increased by 40% compared to before the policy, and the daily new purchase commissions for second-hand homes increased by 20%. This approach of targeting the wealthy to clear inventory has also been used in Beijing. On August 9th, the Beijing Municipal Housing and Urban Rural Construction Committee and the Beijing Housing Provident Fund Management Center jointly issued a notice on further optimizing and adjusting the city's real estate policies. The notice states that Beijing resident and non-Beijing resident families who have continuously paid social insurance or personal income tax for 2 years or more will be allowed to purchase an unlimited number of commercial housing outside the Fifth Ring Road. Additionally, for single adults purchasing commercial housing in Beijing, the purchase restrictions for resident families will apply. But the purchase restrictions within the Fifth Ring Road remain unchanged. Beijing resident families are limited to purchasing 2 properties within that area, while non-Beijing resident families who have paid insurance or income taxes in Beijing for 3 years or more are limited to purchasing 1 property. It seems that both Beijing and Shanghai have coincidentally focused their policy efforts on relaxing the number of properties restrictions rather than lowering the eligibility threshold for home buyers. In this battle to defend the housing market, the target is no longer the general public, but rather the small, wealthy elite at the top of the pyramid. But housing prices in both Beijing and Shanghai are still on the downward trend. It is estimated that while these wealthy individuals may not be concerned about small amounts of money, they are still influenced by the falling prices. If prices continue to decline, people, naturally inclined to seek favorable conditions, may decide to hold off on buying. The so-called rescue the housing market policies are likely to be affected as a result. On September 15th, the National Bureau of Statistics of China released the changes in the sales prices of commercial residential properties in 70 large and medium-sized cities for August. The data shows that in August, the new home sales prices in first-tier cities decreased by 0.9% year-on-year, a 0.2 percentage point narrowing of the decline compared to the previous month. This marks 21 consecutive months of negative growth since December 2023. In Beijing, Guangzhou, and Shenzhen, prices fell by 3.5, 4.3, and 1.7%, respectively. In second and third tier cities, new home sale prices dropped by 2.4 and 3.7% year on year, with the decline narrowing by 0.4 and 0.5 percentage points, respectively. In the second-hand housing market, second-hand home prices in first-tier cities fell by 1% month-on-month, with Beijing of 1.2%, Shanghai of 1%, Guangzhou of 0.9 point, and Shenzhen of 0.8%. Official data shows that Beijing has the largest decline in housing prices nationwide, both in new and second-hand properties. Some specific cases provide a more intuitive view of the price drops. According to a Chinese real estate platform, Beike Zhaofang, the average listing price for Anzhenli community in Chaoyang district, located near the North Third Ring Road, is currently 68,000 yuan per square meter, but one seller is offering a 75 square meter 3-bedroom apartment for only 2.81 million yuan, with a unit price of about 37,000 yuan. Additionally, a 104 square meter 3-bedroom apartment in Rongzi Jiayuan, Changping district, which was listed for 4.8 to 4.9 million yuan in June, sold for just 3.9 million yuan in August, a drop of over 1 million yuan or 21% in just 2 months. Despite the ongoing price decline, the market response to the relaxation of the number of properties restriction in early August was relatively weak, with no significant rebound as expected. This is most evident in the sales volume of Beijing's properties in August, but it was discovered that when Chinese media reported on August's data, there were 2 different sets of figures for new commercial housing. Multiple Chinese media reported that the Beijing Municipal Housing and Urban Rural Construction Committee's data showed that in August, over 2,700 new commercial residential units were sold in Beijing. This represents a 6.2% increase month on month, but a 12.1% decrease year on year. Phoenix Network provided a different set of data. In August, the total number of new commercial residential units sold in Beijing was about 3,100, with a slight decrease of 0.45% month on month and a year on year decline of about 41%. But on the official website, the data for August was no longer available. According to public information, the total number of new commercial residential units sold in Beijing in July was about 3,150. This means that the Beijing Municipal Housing and Urban Rural Construction Committee data referred by multiple Chinese media outlets, which claimed a 6.2% month-on-month increase, contains a significant error. The 3,150 units in July are clearly higher than the about 2,700 units in August. So how could there be a 6.2% month-on-month increase? The data from Phoenix Real Estate Beijing seems more accurate, as it shows a decrease in the sales from July to August. The total number of new commercial residential units sold in Beijing in August was about 3,100 units. In July, the number was about 3,150, and in June, it was almost 3,900. This means that after the so-called relaxation of the number of properties restriction in August, the real estate market sales volume actually declined again. In the second-hand housing market, Beijing's online registration data shows over 13,000 units were sold in August, compared to almost 13,000 units in July and around 15,000 units in June. So, although the second-hand housing sales in August increased compared to July, they still didn't exceed the sales volume in June. The market reaction in Beijing after the new policy is quite similar to that of Shanghai, where it's expected that the housing sales will not see a significant rebound, especially as housing prices continue to decline. Amid the sharp decline in housing prices, Chinese nationals in Southern California are selling their properties in Shanghai and turning to buy homes in Los Angeles. World Journal reported that Mr. Wei Ming Li and his family, who have been living and working in Los Angeles for 3 to 4 years, recently purchased a single-family home in Glendora, Los Angeles County, marking the end of their rental days. One major reason for Li's quick decision to buy local property is the sharp drop in Shanghai's housing prices. He explained that the property in the suburbs of Shanghai had significant historical issues, with the price peaking at 3.2 million yuan. Now, it was sold for just 1.65 million yuan, a 50% drop in value. Mr. Li is concerned that housing prices in Shanghai may continue to decline, as they have been dropping too quickly recently. He said that he decided to sell now while he could. Based on his understanding of the Shanghai property market, many properties have nearly fallen to prices seen 10 years ago. After the COVID-19 pandemic, the decline was slow at first, but by 2024 and 2025, the drop accelerated. The report mentions that many people, like Mr. Li, are choosing to sell their properties at a low price and invest in overseas real estate instead. According to Sina Finance, Shanghai's housing prices have experienced a long period of decline. Data shows that in some areas, property prices may have fallen to 2016 levels, while in other regions such as Lingang and Hongqiao, prices have already hit rock bottom. On September 22nd, Ge Longhui posted related images and data on its Weibo account, stating that in August 2025, the second-hand housing price index in Beijing was 293, returning to the level of June 2016, a 30% drop from the peak. In Shanghai, the second-hand housing price index was 255, returning to the level of February 2016, a 34% drop from the peak. A Shanghai resident, Miss Li Feng, told foreign media that she owns a small one-bedroom apartment near the central line. In just 1 year, the price dropped from 3.8 million yuan to 2.4 million yuan. The drastic drop in housing prices was hard for her to accept. It's not just ordinary homes. The luxury housing market has also been hit. Now all properties in the market are facing the same pressure. And in order to sell a house, one must lower the price. A property vlogger revealed that a luxury home, which was once valued at nearly 100 million yuan at its peak, was recently sold for just over 40 million yuan, a nearly 50% price drop. Many people thought luxury homes wouldn't see price reductions, but when owners are eager to sell, they are forced to make significant price cuts. Another finance vlogger pointed out that taking the relatively resilient Jing'an Danning area and the newer residential complex Jing'an Fu as an example, in July 2022, a 90 square meter 3-bedroom apartment was sold for 13.5 million yuan. By June this year, a similar apartment was sold for just under 9.8 million yuan. On the surface, this seems like a loss of 3.7 million yuan, but after accounting for taxes, renovation costs, 3 years of interest, and agent fees, the total cost was 14.9 million yuan. In reality, the total loss over the 3 years was 5.1 million yuan, a drop of about almost 35%. Buyers in this neighborhood are mainly from the working class, which means that for someone earning an annual pre-tax income of 2.5 million yuan, their 3 years' worth of income has essentially evaporated. Therefore, the impact of falling housing prices on family finances is extremely significant. The current wave of unemployment and salary cuts has further intensified the pressure on homebuyers. Many families are struggling to bear the burden of mortgage payments, with defaults and foreclosures significantly increasing. Shanghai resident Chen Yi expressed that under these circumstances, almost no one dares to buy a house impulsively, and there is little interest in purchasing property. Industry experts predict that around 80% of properties in Shanghai will continue to see gradual price declines, with only 20% expected to stabilize. Overall, the real estate market's winter is far from over, and home buyers and investors must exercise caution in their decisions. A vlogger from Hubei bought a house in Shanghai in 2017 for 2.2 million yuan. This year, facing business difficulties and growing pressure, he decided to sell the house and return to his hometown in Hubei. He listed the property with a real estate agent for the same price of 2.2 million yuan, with a unit price of 26,000 yuan per square meter. But the buyer immediately offered a 600,000 yuan discount. He said it was incredibly frustrating. Although he understands that the market is currently in a downturn, the buyer's offer was only 1.6 million yuan, which brought the unit price down to 18,000 yuan per square meter. He was completely stunned by the offer. His property is in a relatively favorable location, with nearby primary and secondary schools, as well as convenient public transport and subway access. But now, even in prime locations, properties are subject to significant price cuts due to the ongoing market decline. As housing prices decline, the number of people holding off on purchases naturally increases. Meanwhile, China has already built a vast number of homes, creating a massive inventory. Currently, there is no official data on China's total housing stock for 2025, but data from the National Bureau of Statistics shows that in May, the unsold commercial housing area in China reached 78 million square meters. In February 2023, then director of the Office of the National Comprehensive Risk Survey of National Disasters, Mr. Zhang Guoguang, introduced during a press conference that the sector had gathered data on nearly 600 million urban and rural buildings and over 800,000 municipal facilities. With such a large inventory, how can this be addressed in the current sluggish real estate market? On August 14th, Bloomberg, citing sources familiar with the matter, reported that Chinese regulators plan to require large state-owned enterprises and bad asset management companies, such as China Xinda Asset Management, to purchase unsold homes from struggling real estate developers in an effort to help absorb China's 408 million square meters of excess housing. Shanghai entrepreneur Hu Liren, who resides in the United States, believes that the Chinese government's move is similar to the public-private partnership model from the 1950s, which seized capitalist assets. He describes it as a modern version of the new capital recovery movement and a wealth zeroing project led by the CCP targeting the Chinese people. The outcome, he argues, will be a situation where people can only rent homes, with the landlords being the government, state-owned enterprises, and red capital. People's housing rights will depend on their political performance. Professor Frank Xie from the University of South Carolina Atkins School of Business expressed doubts about Bloomberg's sources. He believes that the CCP may be trying to digest some of the excess housing to push prices back up and slow down the collapse of the real estate bubble. Housing prices still appear to be falling, and if they continue to drop, Xie questions which company or state-owned enterprise would be willing to add a large number of depreciating assets to its balance sheet. He said that if the amount of excess housing purchased is sufficient, it would only be a drop in the bucket for the market, and all of this effort would be in vain. In fact, it's not just the push for state-owned enterprises to acquire excess housing that is futile. Even the so-called relaxed policies in Beijing and Shanghai are insufficient. After all, the money in Chinese people's pockets is shrinking. Whether the wealthy or the poor, everyone is focused on securing their future survival.